Hello and welcome to the Publisher Podcast from Media Voices. I'm Chris Sutcliffe, and this is the latest in a series of sessions from the Publisher Summits, which we held in mid-June in London. The summits covered 4 product areas across 2 days, from newsletters and print to apps and podcasts, and featured speakers from loads of places including the Economist, the FT, Grazia, National World Reach, and many more. Huge thanks to the sponsors of the Publisher Podcast and Apps Summit, Crowdfinder Video, PugPig, and Sino. You can find out more about them and how they help publishers take their podcasting and app strategies to the next level at publishersummits.com. Now, this episode features insight from Alina Augustine, who is Audience Growth Manager at The Observer. Now, this is a bit special as The Observer brand was acquired by Tortoise Media in April of this year, so there's an awful lot to talk about there. However, for this episode, Alina spoke specifically about how the team is combining podcasts and apps for a powerful subscriber proposition, and what comes next for native audio within its app. Before we get into the talks, though, we've written up the highlights from this episode in an article which will be live on our website and in the Publisher newsletter on Tuesday. Just go to voices.media and there's a newsletter tab at the top, which will take you straight to the sign-up page. Hello again, everybody. One quick note before we actually begin playing the audio of the session is that we were under a railway arch to record this, and I was recording it with my phone, which was the best option at the time, unfortunately. So while I have fixed up Lina's audio as best I possibly can, there are still some issues. You'll notice a little bit of reverb, some echo, and some bangs and noise as the train goes overhead. Like I said, I fixed that as best I can, but in doing so, unfortunately, that meant that I became unintelligible. So what I've done is I've re-recorded my bits, literally me talking over myself. So if I stumble over words, that's because I'm literally just re-recording the audio as I say it, which was an unusual experience. Just apologies for the quality of Lina's audio. You can make it out, but apologies again.
So hi, my name is Alina. I'm Audience Growth Manager of Observer Podcast, and as Chris said, I just want to give a quick overview on how we've been using our audio in our app so far to drive subscription, not only acquisition, but also retention. Cool, so I'm going to do a little bit of bragging before I go into it. So for those of you who know, we've recently become The Observer, but prior to that we were Tortoise in audio. And we built a great, amazing slate over the last 7 years, which we're really proud of. We have our flagship podcast, the Slate Newscast, a weekly investigation, our daily podcast, which is maximum 7 minutes on a story we think you should know to make sense of the world, the News Meeting, which is a discussion-based podcast, and then our investigations of Tortoise Investigates. We were really proud last year when all of this culminated in us winning Publisher of the Year at the British Podcast Awards. Like I said, this is my bragging slide. So speaking of Tortoise Investigates, I really wanted to highlight it because it is a key subscription driver for us on our audio slate, both on and off platform. Our listeners love to talk about and look out for our investigations. We make sure that they're narrative, character-driven stories that people want to keep coming back for more episodes, and our numbers reflect this. It's easily our biggest feed, and it's also our most global feed, so we see subscribers not only from the UK, but from Ireland, Canada, US, and Australia, which we're really proud of. We built a really loyal base of subscribers from this feed, so they continue to come back every time we launch a new investigation into it, and once they're in, we also try to move them around so that they see other investigations as well. And I'll give a bit more detail in the next slide about what kind of subscriptions we offer. So we have the Tortoise app, which is a key driver for audience growth and, like I said, subscriber acquisition and retention for our podcast. So one of the first things, well, we have 3 key ways that we do this. The first would be curation. So we look at stories that are really dominating the world. So at the moment, it's lovely Mr. Trump. And we curate playlists around that content so that those who are in the app get exclusive access to the content that's curated by journalists from our newsroom, which we find is a really good retention tool, and we consistently refresh them based on what is happening around the world. The second pillar is acquisition. So we use audio to bring the audiences into the app and build out the ecosystem from there. And one of the key drivers, like I said, to do that is Tortoise Investigates. So the subscriber proposition for Tortoise Investigates is that you get every single episode of a series ad-free before anyone else. So for everyone else, only the first 2 episodes are available, and if you're a subscriber, you get the full box set, plus any bonus content, all ad-free. And that's a way to get them into our app, and once they're in, we make sure to move them around the ecosystem there. And then, like I said, we're actually getting on quite well into retention. We also have our written content available on the app. So we bring people in through Tortoise Investigate and then show them that we have journalism on there every day, 7 days of the week. And the way that we keep them there is by telling them that we always go by the ethos of we're trying to make sense of the world, we're not breaking news, we will never be breaking news, we're always trying to make sense of the world. And then in terms of our other subscriber benefits that people get from being on our app, for the Slow Newscast, it's always early access, ad-free, and all our other podcasts are ad-free to our subscribers. And then now, we have a plan to launch the official Observer app in the autumn. So just to give you a bit of context on that, all our audio has now been rebranded under the Observer. If you go on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever your platform is of choice, you will see that. All our always on podcasts are under the Observer, as well as Tortoise Investigates, which is now from the Observer. So it makes sense that we will have an app to reflect that on platform. So we are hoping, but don't hold me to this, we are hoping to launch this new app in autumn. We're currently working on making it the best subscriber proposition that we can. It will include our audio, as well as everything from across, all content from across the Observer. It'll still be curated, you'll still get the same subscriber benefits. So that's kind of our main key aim for the autumn, so please keep an eye out for that. And we know that the Tortoise audience that will be coming to it are native audio lovers, so we would want to continue to give them the content that they love, but also find a way to move the audience that we're getting from our print site over to the app. So it's a really important tool that we'll be using to acquire, grow, and retain our audience in the future.
Well, there's so much there to unpack. First of all, you mentioned that your audiences are native audio listeners. I wondered what research do you have, qualitative or quantitative, that makes you feel that that is a really good format for them?
I think I can say quite confidently that from when the brand was just Tortoise, that we were very much known for our audio and that it reaches the widest audience possible. So like I said, with our investigations, we have a global reach, but also we reach a really wide-spanning audience, and also an audience that's quite unique to publishers in the sense that they are younger skewing, they're female skewing, and we're very proud of that. And we can see that people, when they come to the app, it's often new users are coming for the audio and then staying for everything else. So we know that that's a really key driver of people coming to the platform.
So to what extent then do you feel there is an opportunity for you to zig as well as zag and have the Tortoise or Observer audio elsewhere as well, outside of the native audio app?
Not at all. So we actually have two subscriptions on 2 platforms, so both Apple and Spotify. So we will continue to keep those subscriptions as well. So any kind of subscription you get as an Apple, an Observer plus, still getting used to saying Observer plus subscriber on Apple, you get on our app as well. So it's kind of giving people an opportunity to either subscribe just to the audio or come into our entire ecosystem. And Tortoise Investigates is also available with supporting casts on Spotify as well. So it's not that we want to keep our audio as a subscriber benefit just in our app. It's kind of making sure there's an option for everyone, really.
Right, fantastic.
What people expect now from apps is this incredible user experience. They want it to feel really intuitive and pleasant. How much time do you spend experimenting with that, making sure it feels really, really good?
Yeah, I mean, we work like I said, the curation is a really important part of what we do, and we work really hard to make sure that when someone comes into our app, they want to stay, they want to spend time, and we're also responsive to any feedback we get. So we're really lucky. Well, it depends who you ask. The person managing the emails might not agree, but we're really lucky to get a lot of feedback from people who use the app and also just from across the Observer. So we do respond to that, and we change features and we develop them. But the thing that most people say they really love about the app is the curation side. So that's why we continue to refresh these playlists and introduce them to content that new users especially really see it as a discoverability tool to find out more about us and who we are.
So I'm curious, and I'm sure that people in the audience are curious as well, about audience acquisition and how you actually determine why people are coming into the app to begin with. Are they coming in because they've discovered or seen the shows advertised elsewhere, or are they coming in because they are habitual readers of the Tortoise Now Observer content? What is it that brings people in initially, and how do you track the success of those audio shows when it comes to keeping people around?
This is a good question. The second half, I'm not quite sure if I can answer, but we definitely do, again, with our, not to know all about them, but with our investigations, they're a really good acquisition tool as well. So we often see that people come in to listen to those first, and we see a big spike when we release a new investigation, because it's a great benefit that they get if they listen on the app rather than anywhere else. And in terms of where, I should have asked our data team in more detail, but I think we can definitely see what people come in for, and then I'm not sure, again, I'm so sorry to admit this, but like how we track how they move around the app as well.
And so to what extent is there, what benefits are there in terms of data, and what data you can gather in terms of the audience from having that owned and operated app as opposed to kind of these third-party platforms?
Yeah, so I think we all know that in terms of data that you get from podcasting platforms, and I don't say anything controversial when I say that it's not amazing.
Right.
Yeah, you said it, not me. And so we really like having a platform that we own where we can get much more data from our audience, and it helps us understand it a lot more, and that is why we continue to have the app and keep using it and testing things out and really evolving it, because we do get a lot of data, like I said, both in terms of active data, people actually reaching out, but also in terms of like quantitative data, who's coming in, why they're coming in, how long they're staying, but all that kind of stuff, that it's really useful. Like it's more than we get from any sort of third-party platform.
Obviously, Tortoise, for one, has always been a bit of an outlier in that you were audio first. But what advice would you give to any publishers who are looking to emulate your approach to doing audio and keeping it within their own ecosystems? And if we go back to when you initially launched, is there anything that you would do differently knowing what you know now?
Well, I wasn't actually there when they first launched the app, but before we kind of revamped it, which was around when I joined nearly 2 years ago, everything was kind of in one place, because again, thinking of that ecosystem, we thought if everything's there, then people can see it's all there, and they can just go and listen or read or whatever it is. And I think it seems kind of obvious now, but actually that curation, having different pages, and also signposting well, I think we wish we'd done more of that right at the beginning, because if you finish one of our investigations on the app, you'll immediately pointed to like 3 more with similar themes, just like that. So that's why people move around. Whereas if you just have a page that says, here's all our investigations, it's not as engaging for people. I think we can almost get people to think that we've made this experience specifically for them and personalized it to their listening, with quite a little lift, to be honest, because when you say, if you like this, you might like this.
Makes a lot of sense. I just wondered then, obviously audio is one of those things that you can only really experience. You can't be sold on kind of the camaraderie between hosts. You can't be sold on kind of the human nature of a podcast solely through text. How do you actually go about editing and promoting the audio side alone?
No, that's really interesting. So we don't actually market the app and stuff, because we kind of know when we get people in that we're doing that within the platform. We market the subscription benefit that you get from being on the app, and like the access that you get as well that you wouldn't get in other places. So that's actually how we get people in. But also, I guess, we get a lot of discoverability from podcasting platforms, and because we have audiences that come from different places, not just audio, the app's a great place to get people in who might not be audio makers and then find us. So that's a different way to kind of look at it as well.
One of the things that we've heard quite a lot so far, even in the kind of the early stages of this conference, is that community is a big focus for people who are producing podcasts, because they want to extend the lifespan of that podcast beyond the episodes being published. If money were no object, would that be something you would like to do more of?
Totally. So actually that's something that we really would like to do. I know that there are other podcasts out there that are really good at building communities and kind of give, again, having that as a subscription or membership or whatever you want to call it, benefit. So it's something we really want to do, something that hopefully once we're out of the sort of interim period of becoming the observer properly, definitely something that we want to look at, because we get a lot of engagement from people, but across different platforms, and we want to give them one place to come, meet each other, chat, and kind of also use that as a word of mouth marketing tool. Hopefully, if people are like, you know what, this is a great place to go and like chat about your favorite podcast and like find people who are interested in the same thing. But also give them like exclusive chances to speak to hosts or little snippets or things that we wouldn't give anywhere else. It's all options. I'm not saying that's definitely something we're going to do, but I think having that interactive feature would hopefully open stuff up.
So you've mentioned the idea of curation there as being a big draw when you sort of highlight what the listeners should be doing next within the app. I wonder, what does that look like internally? Whose responsibility is it to make sure that curation is working well?
So luckily it's not mine, but we have excellent production editors that work on the editorial side of our app. So they look at, so for example, we recently had an investigation called Lucky Boy out, and we could see that people who came, we knew that Lucky Boy was quite similar to another investigation we did called Dangerous Memories, and we were like, okay, we could move people to that, and we could create a playlist that's like, people, I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember if they thought of a better title for the playlist, but something like people who've been scammed or whatever, and then we could put our content in there. And we also did a listener survey last year where we asked people what they liked about our podcast. We took the keywords from that and used them to make playlists as well, because this one's a really vague one, but we get a lot of engagement with it, like making sense, because that's ultimately what people want rather than the breaking news part. So the production editors group content based on whatever, or like where they can see the audience is going, but also any other feedback we get from off platform as well.
I'm curious then, obviously there's limited amounts of data that you can get from other platforms, but from what you've seen with the reams of data that you have on the app, to what extent do people listen for longer within a native audio app like yours, and compared to those other major podcast platforms?
I'm wondering if I can answer that question. So we can compare the data. I would say that on the app, people do like. Okay, so it's not comparative to the data that we get from our platform and our own platform in the app. It's quite hard to compare because it's not the same. I think what we can see on the app is that people, because it's not just audio, people listen to the audio, and then often we have written pieces that go alongside episodes that they will then go over to the written piece. If that makes sense. So in that way, there's more for them to stay there for, because it's not just the audio. So in terms of time spent, I would assume it's longer, but again, it's not like a straight comparison between both.
And how agnostic are the Tortoise and Observer audiences when it comes to the medium that they consume the content in? Are they, you were audio first. Do you feel that your listeners are audio first as well, or are they just as keen to read that kind of content or watch videos about it? Do they have a preferred form, or is it literally just the quality that they come for?
I would say in terms of both like Tortoise readers and now Observer readers, it's definitely the content that they come for more than anything else. It's what we say our journalism is, and what kind of stories they can expect, and how we distinguish ourselves, or try to distinguish ourselves from everyone else as much as possible. That's definitely what pulls people in. And in terms of like getting new users in, that's always content-based rather than platform-based. We just we've created that, or like we have the app for that reason, so that if you see our content and you like it and you want to consume it, whether audio or written, it's there for you to consume. It's definitely content driven, and that's very much will be the strategy for the foreseeable, really. That's very much the focus.
So there's an awful lot of change going on for you, and I imagine there is an equivalent amount of work that's going on. But to what extent do you still have headroom to experiment with the form, with the app itself, with how you're getting people in, with what native audio in-app can actually offer to people? Where is there still headroom for growth, do you think? Or even is there still headroom for growth?
So I think actually now, as we've become the observer, we've got more scope to grow. I think, again, like just quickly do a mental check of what I can and can't say, but the observer brings with it the expertise and the position in the space of food and culture and fashion, in like the paper and the magazine, and we definitely want to reflect that across all platforms. So actually, it's very much a time of thinking about that and looking at those things and whether we can do something with that in audio. Definitely something that we're all thinking about. And I think if anyone was at the podcast show, they might have heard it. We are trying to move into more verticals in the audio state, and really appreciate having the legacy of the Observer to give us the support in doing that as well, and also access to like amazing journalists. We've already had journalists coming onto our podcast, whether it's the news meeting as guests or reporting on stories on the Slow Newscast, or doing sense makers, or pitching the new multi-part investigations. So it's very much broadening out what we can do in audio, because we have an amazing resource in the Observer newsroom and the legacy of the brand as well. So it is a period of rapid change, but one we're really excited about, because hopefully it's going to just lead to more growth and making our audience happy.
Well, that sounds amazing, and I'm going to use the word synergy here, and trust me, I hate myself for it, but it sounds like there's some incredible synergy there between what the Observer brand is actually bringing to the table and what you've already been doing as Tortoise. To what extent are you communicating that change, that potential upcoming acceleration of what you're doing to audiences, and how do you feel they're responding to that so far?
Yeah, so again, it's content first. So whether it's off or on platform, we've said it's the same content that you expect. The format's not changing. The making sense of the world is the underlying thing that we do across everything, and that's not changing. It's a slightly different colour, it's a slightly different name, but you get access to this huge wealth of journalists, and that's how we presented it. And the feedback that we've got has been nothing but positive. And I think by doing the rebrand, it's small steps. It means that we're kind of drip feeding to the audience. They don't feel put off that it's suddenly like a completely different podcast. So it's definitely something that we're doing slowly over time. And they seem to be happy with it. Again, because we've kept to our core values throughout the whole thing.
So obviously we're coming into the end of the beginning of the end of the first day of this podcast conference. And I wondered, you've been listening to some of the sessions already, I know, and I wondered, how do you feel about the wider ecosystem, the wider podcast ecosystem, and what do you foresee as being some of those big opportunities or even challenges that are coming down the pipe?
I don't know that I can answer that. I can say for us, so we were actually talking to a few people about it earlier. It's definitely something, again, once we've settled down a little bit, that we will be looking to do more of. We currently use video on social as more of a discoverability tool for people to find our podcast, rather than as the main episode, if that makes sense. We have a bit of a challenge with our investigations, because you can't really make a video of someone investigating, or it's really difficult essentially. So again, we visualize on social. So once the dust has settled a little bit, we're going to look at our slate and see which podcast makes sense for video. We're not going to force video where it doesn't make sense, but it's not something that we'll say completely no to. And I think also for us, because we have an art where we license our IP out, so we kind of have we get the documentary or the drama, whatever it is, we get that from that arm of the business as well. So it's picking the right format according to the podcast, and again, like the content comes first, whatever makes sense with the content, where the audience will be for that content, that's what drives the strategy.
And how do you see audience growth continuing for you guys in terms of your audio? Is it going to continue apace? Do you feel like there's going to be an acceleration in terms of, new audience members coming in, or, do you even worry that you may have hit a ceiling here?
Again, big questions today. I think we obviously love to have everyone listening to our podcast, and wouldn't we all? But I think where we've seen the most success in terms of audience growth is by having loyal subscribers, listeners, followers, whoever they are, keep coming back and keep coming back to us. And the dream, or even, I guess the dream would be to sustain that and grow at pace on top of that, reach a wider audience where we can. We try to do a lot of kind of contra partnerships with organizations with similar audiences, even outside of audio. So we'd love to grow, but ultimately we want to continue to serve that audience that keeps coming back to us and pays for our content, because we really appreciate it. So that's kind of the aim, but of course we'd love to have insane growth for the next few years as well.
So, as mentioned, I've written up the key learnings from this session, and that's going to be live on our website this Tuesday. That's voices.media, and in our newsletter. Please do sign up for that while you're on the website. Thanks also to Crowdfinder Video, PugPig, and Sino. You can find out more about them and how they help publishers take their podcasting and app strategies to the next level at publishersummits.com. We are going to be back next week with another session from the Publisher Summits, but until then, thank you very much for listening. Enjoy the heat, everybody, and goodbye.